let's see if they are finally revealing the 4 stars that are coming out. Oh, interesting. Bennett, Thoma, and Sethos on the Clorinde and Alhaitham Banners. So Bennett is obviously one of the best characters in the game, even though he's a 4-star, extremely good. You can pick him up from the Star Glitter shop, so not quite as big of a deal to get him. But if you don't have his C1, that's his best constellation, and if you were planning to go for Clorinde or Alhaitham, getting Bennett would be really nice. Thoma's not bad, but he has a lot of issues. Number one is that it's very hard to build Thoma because he wants a ton of energy recharge. He also wants HP to make his shield stronger, and then Thoma's pretty much most useful teams are basically Burge and Thoma, and for that you pretty much want full EM. So it's really hard to build him because you need energy recharge for his burst to keep that up, and then you have to normal attack a bunch to use the fiery collapses, the little fire waves he sends out from his burst. So you need a normal attacking character in the team as well, and then also to have a ton of EM for Burgeon. So honestly, someone like Dayak ends up being a better Burgeon support than Thoma. We have Sethos, who is a very interesting 4-star. He's an on-field damage dealer that can either do really, really long charge attack playstyle or have a kind of short range normal attack infused with electro playstyle. He looks pretty cool, but I don't think he's going to be very good. Just very flashy looking. So overall, I mean, Bennett is clearly the best 4-star out of these 3 on both. However, what is disappointing is that these 4-stars don't actually work with the 5-stars pretty much. Like, they work with them, but they're not very good. Like, Thoma will work with the normal attacks from Clorinde, and he'll work with Alhaitham, but you don't run, like, Alhaitham Burgeon teams, and you don't really want to run Clorinde's overloaded teams either. You want to run both these characters in Dendro teams, like you want to run Alhaitham in Aggravate or like Hyper Bloom or Quick Bloom, and basically the same thing for Clorinde. You want to run her in Aggravate, Alhaitham in Spread, and then both of them in something like a Quick Bloom team as well. So the Chevreuse teams with Clorinde would be okay, but they're not going to be nearly as strong as the Dendro teams. Same thing for Alhaitham. Like, you really want to run him with Electro supports, not Pyro supports. So these characters don't really help that much, especially because Sethos is not an Electro support. He's an on-fielder. So these, like, there's really not a lot of synergy here at all, unfortunately. I guess if you were wishing on this banner because you wanted Clorinde or Alhaitham, though, Bennett would probably be the best character you could get, because then you can use him on another team, not necessarily with your 5-stars, but you could use him with Xiangling, you could use him in a variety of other teams. The national team is still one of the strongest to this day, and Bennett has a lot of places, but he's not as ubiquitous on every team that we need since the inclusion of Dendro characters into the game. So overall, the 4-stars outside of Bennett, not great, and they don't have any real synergy with the 5-star characters, which hopes maybe makes me believe that the Sigewinne Furina banner 4-stars will be better. This is kind of interesting because the 5-stars here are both pretty good. Like, Alhaitham is quite strong, and then Clorinde is not too bad either, but her personal damage shouldn't be as strong as Alhaitham. She's probably going to be maybe 20 to 30% behind him in terms of damage, but the mobility that she has and like the kind of fluid zipping around kind of makes up for it, because Alhaitham gets kind of locked down a little bit into his rotations, but she can sort of freely charge and move around a lot easier. And then she can also run with Furina really well and run no healer or shielder and have like a good team that way. So most of the damage for Clorinde is coming from the fact that you can use other characters that are not healers with her and still do fine. Overall, if you wanted to wish on these characters, hopefully you get a lot of Bennett, but if you were considering like, oh, maybe I'll go for Clorinde or Alhaitham, I'll see how the 4-stars are looking. One good 4-star out of 3 is a little bit sus to wish on. You don't have that high of a percent to actually get one of the 4-stars you want. Watch my Mika vid to see how many times I wished on that banner for Mika just because I wanted to play around with him and because I thought it would be fun. Spoiler, there's a lot of wishes. Let's take a look at the weapon banner and see if that's any better. So we've got Absolution, Clorinde's signature weapon, and Lo-Fi. Lo-Fi is not too bad. Absolution, obviously best for Clorinde, not amazing for anyone else. These are both okay, 5 stars. They really do want to be kind of on their signature character. And then we've got, let's see, Stringless, Sacrificial Sword, Widsith. Is that Lithic Spear? It is Lithic Spear. Okay. And then the Sacrificial Greatsword. Not really a good weapon banner either. Honestly, these are both kind of disappointing. The 5-star weapons, they're not bad. The Stringless is good for someone like Fischl. It can be a pretty good bow. Sac Sword, this is good with refinements for Xingqiu. A C0 Sac Sword is not the greatest because the cooldown on the Sac Sword at R1 is 30 seconds, and then the R3 is, I believe, 20 seconds. And Xingqiu's skill is 21 seconds for the cooldown, so you really wanted R3. That way you can have the passive of the Sacrificial Sword line up with Xingqiu. Otherwise, the passive doesn't line up, and you have to, and the Sac Sword passive happens every other Xingqiu rotation, and it just feels really bad. So this could be nice for refinements if you have a Xingqiu and you don't have like a Favonius sword or another good energy recharge sword for him. Let's say if you're using the Fluvson Ferryman on someone like Farina and you don't have another energy recharge sword for Xingqiu, you could get Sac Sword with a lot of refinements could be good. Widsith is a very, very good catalyst, that sword. It is a book, it is a codex, but it's a very good catalyst weapon. It has crit damage, the buff it gives you is really nice. It does really well with refinements, particularly at R5. The Lithic Spear is interesting because it gives you crit rate, but it is also dependent on how many characters you have from Liyue in the party. Not too many characters can really use this that well. There's not really a great team that uses all Liyue characters and has like a bunch of spear characters as well. So this weapon, it seems really good on paper, but it kind of forces you into playing certain teams that aren't quite as optimal or as optimized as ones that you could play if you didn't feel like you were restricted to just playing Liyue characters and you could play anyone you wanted. So Lithic kind of puts a little bit of an unnecessary restriction on you, in my opinion. So I don't really like the weapon that much, even though it is kind of a unique passive. And then Sac Greatsword is pretty much useless except on Navia. So it's not a great weapon. It has high base attack, low energy recharge for its stat lines. But it does hit pretty hard, and it can give Navi an extra charge of her skill, which could be pretty nice. So it's not a terrible weapon for her, but in general, just not really a great weapon. So overall, I was kind of waiting. I wanted to see how Clorinde feels, and then kind of considering going for her if the 4 stars were good and if I liked playing her. I might skip this banner now because I'm not really jazzed about many of these 4 stars. They look cool, but I don't think I'd use them that much. Like, I don't think I'd use Sethos that much. Thoma would be fun if I had him C4 or higher, because his C4 reduces his energy recharge cost by a lot, by 15, so that helps a lot. He's still very energy hungry after that, but it really does help a lot. And then I have C6 Bennett already, so I don't need him. And I already have Alhaitham, so I don't know. Kind of disappointing, to be honest. Hopefully this means that the Farina and Sijuin banners will be better.